Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Susanna.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Oh, you're live and in person. How fun. Hi, Keen. We'll give everyone 5 minutes to show up.
Keen, you seem to be talking, but you're muted.
Yeah, I was talking to say hi, Wayne. Good to see you.
Oh, hi, Keen. Nice to see you too.
Right.
Hi, Adam. You look a little less like Yosemite Sam. I can see you've trimmed your beard a little bit.
I had a big client presentation with like 50 prospective clients, and I brought it in a little bit. But my boss still doesn't want me to shave it. He's, I think, the biggest fan of the beard.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I think that's it.
Well, so far, how's everybody doing?
We're all well. Thank you.
Good.
Adam, can I ask you during this meeting to help me with, as you often do, with managing the chats, the raise hands?
That I can do. I was actually, I'm sorry for not providing notice earlier. I do have a work conflict. I'm gonna have to step away for half hour in 1 hour at 7:30.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Just alert me and
I will.
I'll Wayne do it or something like that. We're going to end this meeting by 8. But that's fine. Hi, Tracy. You are going to be elevated to a, let me just see this. Tracy, Carter, hi, Jenny. And hi, Matt. And hi, Erica. Hi. Carter, do you want to elevate these people to participants, or did you already do that? Maybe you've already done that because I can hear.
Oh, I knew I did.
Yep, I'm moving some forward.
Okay.
The ones that I've got here, except Matt doesn't look like Tracy.
Yeah. Now he's gone. So anyway, we're gonna give wait a couple more minutes for everyone to join. I see that we have 31 participants, which is nice. And I see 26 attendees. That's fun. And 7 panelists. I'll give us until 6:35 and then I'll start this.
Okay, so if we could have the folks from
Yes.
CUCS and Goddard, if they could raise their hands so that we can
I
bring
can
you
also
on.
identify them. Joe DeGenova, Doug James. I don't know if he's here yet. Let's see. Matt Vigiano, Abby Nyameke. Matt Vigiano, is that Melissa Rosenberg with the Matt Vigiano label? Joe DeGenova.
Yeah, so everybody should be able. People should be able to rename themselves.
Yeah, that's
on the
Tracy.
top
Tracy
right
has
of
the
this.
Matt logo.
And let's see. Doug, I don't know if Doug has joined yet.
I'm on. I'm
Okay.
actually named Matt Vigiano for some reason.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, I wasn't looking at pictures. Okay.
Yeah, there I am.
So
Joe is here and Doug
look
and
at your thing. Yeah, good. Doug James and
Abby and
Hi,
Tracy.
Matt Vigiano. Can you change yourself as other Matt Vigiano? Fix your name.
Yeah, Melissa, you're named as Matt Vigiano, so
Tracy.
I'm sorry, Tracy.
Oh yeah, I am. I'm not Matt. Hi.
Okay.
Change it. Look on your screen and change your name. Do you know how to do that? It's up in the little upper right corner.
I do that.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
did
you
that.
should
And you've done it. You're
Yeah.
okay. You're okay.
Oh,
So
there you go. There it goes.
I'll ask us
Oh,
all
there it is.
to mute ourselves to the extent that we can when we can. First of all, I want to welcome everyone to the meeting and especially our participants, our attendees who've signed up to join the webinar. I don't have to thank you for coming out in the pouring rain. That's one of the nice things about Zoom. I hope you're all sitting there with maybe a hot cup of tea instead, but still thank you for your time. And I will promise that we will end this meeting by 8 o'clock because I also don't like long meetings. Here's how it's going to be. We have one agenda tonight. This is the Manhattan Community Board 2 meeting of the Social Services Committee. It's our monthly meeting. We have one agenda item tonight, and that is we're going to check in with the Center for Urban Community Services, otherwise known as CUCS, regarding a safe haven shelter that is planned for 112 to 114 West 14th Street. What we'll do, I'll introduce us and our committee members. We'll ask the people from CUCS to introduce themselves. We'll go to some questions from me and from our committee, and then we'll open it up to questions from the public. And when we do open up to questions from the public, I'll ask everyone to keep it really short and on topic, and I will turn this off. And also we're gonna ask people to respond. What the hell? We're going to ask people who are adjacent neighbors to the safe haven to comment first. And I want to also first thank Corey Johnson's office. Eric Botcher, I know, is on this call. Eric, if you have a need to speak, or Pat, please raise your hand and Adam Zeldin will see you. But I know that the speaker's office has had a lot of meetings about this topic. We haven't met with CUCS for a while. We only met with you guys once at the end of 2018. So it's very nice to see you again. So I will introduce myself and our committee, and then we'll go to you guys. I am Susanna Aaron. I am the chair of the Social Services Committee of CB2. Wayne?
Yep. Hi, I'm Wayne Kwadler. I'm on the Social Services Committee of CB2.
Keen?
Hi, I'm Keen Berger. I'm also on the committee.
Adam?
Adam Zeldin, I'm on the committee.
And is there anyone else here from CB2? Carter Booth?
I'm here as well, and we have William Benish and Donna Raftery are also with us.
Oh, there you go. William, can you just put a name to your, oh, there you go. Okay, thank you. And let's hear from the folks from CUCS. Just quick introductions.
My name's Joe DiGenova. I'm the Associate Executive Director of CUCS, and I'll soon be the CEO in December.
Oh. Doug?
Hi, Doug James. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for CUCS. Thanks for having us again.
I hear someone's tea boiling. Abby?
Hi, everyone. Abby Nyamache. I'm Chief Administrative Officer for CUCS. Thanks for having us.
Tracy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Earhart. I'm the Program Director for Paul's Place.
Is that what this place is going to be called? Paul's
Yes,
Place?
sorry. Yes, for the new drop-in center in Safe Haven.
Okay, thank you. We didn't know that. Erica?
Hi, I'm Erica Strang. I'm the director of the Manhattan Outreach Consortium at CUCS.
And Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Drossman. I'm the program director for Downtown Goddard with the Manhattan Outreach Consortium.
And people who don't know, Erica and Jenny are part of the Manhattan Outreach Consortium, which are the face-to-face interaction with street homeless in a catchment area in Manhattan, and Jenny is in our catchment area, which is south of 23rd Street. I also see that Rachel Yarmolinsky on our committee has joined. Am I leaving anyone or anything out?
I think that
I'll start with questions.
well,
Sorry, yeah.
There should be a representative from the Department of Homeless Services on the call. Possibly.
Is Lonnie here? Let's see.
Spoke with her earlier today. She said she would be.
Okay, if you are there, can you raise your hand and Carter will see you? Because it's not Leilani Urban, so I don't recognize the name and I didn't hear from anybody.
Oh, I should also mention, I'm sorry, one last thing, Matt Vigiano from CUCS, who's our consulting firm, is on as well, attending. on our behalf.
Great, and Matt has
Just let
been
you know
to
they're there.
all of these meetings. All right, so introductions, we're done with those. Let's start in with this. First of all, what's it called? When is it opening? People on this call who are people whose faces we see are pretty familiar with this, but people who are participating from elsewhere may not be. So we want to provide a lot of information.
Joe, do you want me to start with the introduction, or?
Well, Susanna, could I say a little bit about CUCS for people who are on the call?
Yes, and also I'd like to note that there's Leilani, right? Leilani, hi, that's Leilani Irvin from the Department of Social Services. Yes, we can.
Hi, I was trying to get on to be a panelist. Good evening, everyone. Leilani Irvin, Manhattan Borough Director for the Department of Social Services. Great to be with you all.
All right, Joe, do you want to start? Yes, that would be great.
If I could just take 2 minutes to talk a little bit about.
Change your name. It looks like your name is Matt Vajana. Can you change?
Oh yeah, Leilani, can you change your name to your name? It says Matt Vijano, so just change it when you get a chance. Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Joe?
I don't know how that happened.
It's the link that I RSVP'd to. I think that was the issue.
So I'll just do like 2 minutes on CUCS. We were born at Columbia University in the late 80s. And since that time, we've been completely dedicated to helping homeless and formerly homeless people get their lives together, get housing, and then set and pursue goals that are meaningful to them. Today, we have a continuum of services for homeless and formerly homeless people. We have street outreach services, which you mentioned. We run the Manhattan Outreach Consortium. We have a number of transitional housing sites where we bring people from the streets into the transitional housing sites. There, we help people get themselves together and obtain permanent housing. And we also run or provide services in over 2,500 units of permanent supportive housing. And we have a number of projects in the pipeline. Layered on top of that, we also do employment services, psychiatric services, and primary care services. In addition, we train about 14,000 people a year in how to do the same kind of work. And then finally, we pride ourselves on providing the highest quality of service possible. We like to say that we want the services to be as good as we would want them to be for ourselves or for a member of our family. The second thing we pride ourselves on being is a good neighbor. We always want to fit into the neighborhood and be a part of it in a mutually beneficial way. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tracy to talk more specifically about Paul's Place, as we call it, and what services we'll be providing there.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So Paul's Place is two programs under one roof, basically. It's a 24-bed safe haven where clients have their own individual room and bed area. And then we have the drop-in center, which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, providing services to homeless people who drop in. Clients will come to us from the Manhattan outreach teams as referrals for the safe haven beds. And similarly, those using services at the drop-in center will learn about us from their outreach team or perhaps word of mouth if they're not connected to an outreach team. We'll also be collaborating once we open with service providers in the area so that referrals are coming from that avenue as well.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second, just to clarify. Yeah. So I'm a little interested. I understand how people get there for the drop-in center. I'm a little interested and less clear about how they end up in one of those beds and how long they stay. So how does that happen?
Sure. So DHS and MOC, the Manhattan Outreach Consortium, decide on the bed allocations for all of the beds at the safe haven. So basically each bed is allocated to a specific outreach team that will be open to them until filled. And if not filled by a certain time, obviously our priority is in filling those beds, then it will be open up to other outreach teams in Manhattan. So we don't have a lot of, we'll receive a referral from an outreach team and we'll work to set up an intake for that person whenever that happens.
Got it.
The overall goals of Paul's Place are the same for both the drop-in center and the safe haven. to help homeless people move along the road toward permanent housing. That's going to look different for each person we provide services to. We'll have some clients whose goal is not to move into permanent housing right away, and it will take them some time to realize that goal with the support of our staff. There will be others who will come in, have their IDs and paperwork, and perhaps have already begun a 2010E process toward housing, and we'll hit the ground running with them and collaborate with their other providers who have already started helping them toward housing. Our staff will work to engage the guests of the drop-in center and the residents of the Safe Haven in as many services as they're interested in receiving. The initial primary goal of our staff is to build trusting relationships with the people who come in so that they keep coming back. Part of that goal might be to undo any of the negative feelings a person living on the street may have toward traditional service provision. So this is sort of like a no strings attached model of providing services that works to engage people wherever they're at. Safe havens were created with the idea that offering an individual a safe place to sleep that is not structured like a typical shelter will serve as a stabilizing factor, allowing them to start to consider long-term alternative housing options.
When are you scheduled to open?
December, mid-December.
Mid-December?
Yeah.
And how big will your staff be?
So we have 40 full-time employee hours. That includes, though, per diem staff that will be staffing our weekends. So there's actually more than 40 people that we'll have as employees, but our per diem staff will be working all of the weekend shifts.
Well, 40 full-time equivalents.
Yeah,
I understand. Right. So some of those, it might be 60 people with 20. Right. I got it. It might be more people on smaller timeframes, but the equivalent of 40 full-time people.
Right.
And you expect to have more people working on the weekends, presumably because you expect more people to come in on the weekends?
Actually, our weekend staff are the per diem staff. Each shift has 3 clinical staff. We'll also have 2 safety specialists on at all times, and then our maintenance and food service staff.
I'm sorry, I just want to get that right. Each shift has 3 in clinical staff plus a security staff and plus food and whatever.
Right. That's for the evening, overnight, and weekend shifts. Our Monday through Friday 9 to 5 hours are staffed with more people.
Are staffed with more people?
Yeah, we have more people during the week, Monday through Friday.
Oh, okay, I understand. Your per diems are on the weekend because actually it's a little quieter, and you have a robust staff full-time during the week.
Right.
What else should we know? What will security, I'm going to open it up promptly for questions. What kind of services do they have on people who come in for the drop-in center? Can they take showers? Can they do laundry? Can they eat? Can they sleep? What can they do there?
All of those things that you mentioned. Maybe I can walk through like a typical client chronologically, from walking in the door to Paul's place to walking in the door to their own apartment. And that can maybe demonstrate some of the services that we provide.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a client who walks in the door of Paul's place the first week we open and notices that we're a new place on the block, engages with our safety specialist staff, who are security level staff. Say this client's name is Joe. He noticed that he walks in, he notices that this is a new place and he's wondering what we're all about. The staff person lets Joe know some of the things that we do at Paul's place. He asks Joe if he is sleeping on the street. Joe says that he is. And he briefly goes through the services that we provide there at the drop-in center. He asks Joe if he's eaten lunch. Joe agrees to come in for lunch. The staff person he's talking to notices that Joe's missing a shoe and that he's fashioned something to fit on his foot out of cardboard and material that looks stained with maybe some blood. He also notices that Joe has a little bit of a limp. Joe signs in, he walks into the dining area, he's invited into the dining area, he sits down, he has a meal. The safety specialist notifies the intake social worker that Joe is in the dining room and it looks like he could use some medical attention for his foot. The intake social worker goes to talk to Joe. Joe finishes his lunch and he decides that he's leaving at that point. We let Joe know that we are here if he wants to come back and that we could help him get a pair of shoes if he wants to have a pair of shoes before he goes back outside. Joe agrees to stay a little bit longer. We engage our nurse practitioner who's there 2 days a week. And we decide with the nurse practitioner, it might be a good idea for the nurse practitioner to deliver the shoes that we have from our donation bin to Joe, so she can maybe get a look at his foot. Joe is really ambivalent about showing his foot, but he agrees to take the sneakers and he goes on his way. He comes back the next day and he has lunch again. We talk to Joe about football because that's what Joe wants to talk about. We want him to the goal is to get him to keep coming back inside. We continue to engage Joe in just whatever he wants to talk about. Eventually he lets the nurse practitioner take a look at his foot. And she notices, she does a full exam. She notices that she assesses him and he has diabetes. And she's concerned about the wound, he has a wound on his foot. She tells him that we can prescribe him antibiotics and we can help him get those antibiotics if he wants them and he decides that he does want some medication. He's at this point come back a couple of times and he agrees to receive his antibiotics every day. He's coming every day for food, so he gets also his antibiotic. Eventually, his wound gets better. And he decides that seeing a nurse practitioner, a doctor, is not that bad. He's struggled with depression all these times that he's coming in. He's talking to his case manager and he lets the case manager know that he has had depression in the past. He eventually agrees to see our psychiatrist who's there 5 days a week. And he starts to engage in both psychiatric and medical services. He's still not willing to sleep inside. We cannot talk him into going to a shelter or to a respite bed. The more that he comes back though, we keep mentioning these things to him as possibilities. He eventually decides that he'll agree to be transported to a respite bed to sleep overnight at a church. He experiences that as different than the time that he was at the shelter last, which was not a great experience for him. And he grows to agree to go to the church several times a week. As he continues to keep coming in, we start talking to him about an ID, an SSI, and he's able to, we know he's eligible for SSI, and he starts to work with his social worker on getting those services.
I think what you're describing, it's very clear. This is really sort of an extension of what Manhattan Outreach Consortium does, which is you're engaging people. You have a lot of services that you can offer, and you will be working to coax people to accept the services. What I want to do is open it up to questions because I want to get to those, and I'm going to keep us tight to our line. So I'm going to ask, if possible, people who are nearby residents to raise their hands first and let those people have a shot, and then we'll broaden it out a little bit. I'm going to ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes. I'm really bad at monitoring that, I have to say, but I'm going to try. So I'll also just rely on you guys to please be polite. We have a lot of people, I'm sure, who want to say something, and we don't have a huge amount of time. So I'm going to ask my bearded pal, Adam Zeldin, while he's with us for the next half hour. If there are any questions, please raise your hand, and Adam can let you speak, and we'll get going.
All right, I've allowed Gabriella to start 2 minutes of questions.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, hi. Okay, thank you for all the information. So the question that I have is, I'm just wondering, what steps will be taken to ensure, that the quality of life, safety for the community as a whole will not be like negatively impacted by, the possible, issues, be it mental health or addiction that this population, that the center attracts, may have or may be experiencing.
Thank you, Gabriella. That's a great question. And it raises a question that I think is a concern on people's minds. We know that this is going to be a wonderful resource for people who are on the street. And the hope is that people who are currently on the street will be less on the street. But there's always a concern of if you build it, they will come. Will this, what will this mean in terms of quality of life? Will it become a hangout place outside for anyone who wants to find company on the street? So if you could address that a little bit, I know that that's a question that people always have.
So we realize that while we're providing a service that's going to help the broader community, we're also doing that. In doing that, we're concentrating activity on the block. We'll be orienting all of our clients who use services at the drop-in center and the Safe Haven residents to our good neighbor policy, and redirecting clients to our outdoor patio area at the rear of the building for those who say would like to smoke or just hang out and get some fresh air, so it's not right in front of the building. We'll have appropriate restrictions on the use of that patio space during the nighttime hours to reduce noise concerns. We'll also have, just in terms of communication, we'll have a phone number for emergent issues that arise, and also an email address that will come directly to me for less urgent issues, so that we can talk through what's going on to come to a solution together.
What will security look like, and will you have cameras outside? And what is your good neighbor policy?
So we will, Doug, maybe you can speak more directly about the camera situation on the block outside. I'm not sure that I know about that, facilities related.
So at the entrance, there is the facility is staffed 24 hours a day, and there's a reception desk. And at that reception desk in the front door, it's a full glass window where the person who's manning access control can also see the street and monitor what's happening outside. There's cameras that look up and down the block both ways, and that person is monitoring those cameras as well as cameras inside the building. That was the camera situation and what our security is responsible for.
What's the good neighbor policy?
So our good neighbor policy is that when you call the facility, you get a person. And when you send an email raising a concern, you'll get a response. All right. And we own our presence on the block and the impact. As soon as we're open, we will work with the Department of Social Services to create a community advisory board. I think one of the roles that we would look for from the community board is to help us select who the appropriate members of the community would be to create that board. That community advisory board really belongs to the community. I will say for the record, Department of Homeless Services requires us to have them. We think that they're an incredible tool to help us run a quality program, and we're staunch believers in them. But they are the community advisory board of the community, right? And it's a way for you guys to let us know what's happening. Ideally, what happens after we've been open for 6 or 7 months and we've gone through our growing pains is we start meeting less frequently. We go from monthly to bi-monthly, and then when we meet thereafter, it's to hear happy updates about the success of the program and how things are running, and to schedule, community interactions where we have volunteer or outreach efforts, to connect the residents of the facility with the community and vice versa. But that's our good neighbor policy in a nutshell.
Is there anyone on
That's
our
right.
committee or at CB2 who would like to ask the question?
I want to throw out, along the lines of our good neighbor policy, it starts before we move in. We've met frequently with folks on the block, with folks in the community. Obviously, we've been to the community board before we started. Our first visit to community board 2 was, I think, like 3 or 4 years ago, actually, when we first proposed the site, and spoke to the community board and the elected officials about it before we spoke with DHS about it, frankly. And that commitment, goes for us all the way through, not just before, but during and after.
And just to piggyback off of what Doug just expressed, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Hi, this is Leilani. That community advisory board engagement piece can start right away. The cabs will start and become live once the site is live. But the engagement piece in terms of identifying individuals who seem or may be interested or be ideal to be a part of that community advisory board meeting, that can start right away. So if there's anyone that comes to mind, I'd ask for you to just share those individuals' names with me. There is a cap. All community advisory boards think the cap, I believe, is no more than 20 individuals. To avoid like a town hall setting, but we have met, to Doug's point, pardon me, quite often about this site. So I think folks are somewhat familiar with the provider, CUCS. I think they're familiar a bit with the leadership and have somewhat of an understanding of the need and what it will look like. And in light of those discussions that we've had with members in community, CUCS was able to make some modifications as it relates to the backyard. I know there was some dialogues and discussions had, some concerns community residents had about the backyard. In light of those discussions, they kind of, made some developmental changes. So that's helpful. Those types of early conversations and discussions that's been had has been helpful, as it helped CUCS incorporate some new designs as they've been developing. So,
Leilani, can you just provide us with information? I mean, like mechanically, if someone has a name they'd like to recommend, is there an email address? Yes, Melissa Hacker asked, is there an email address that we can use? And yeah, I'll put that in our report as well. Do you want to?
Yes, I usually work with elected officials, community board, to collect that list.
Okay, so anyone can contact City Council Speaker Corey Johnson's office. No?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Yeah, I work with their office to identify people, but I also will put my information, my email.
We just need an email address so that people, I can put it into my report for people who are not here tonight, and anyone who's here tonight can do that, because we always get those invitations and then we never know exactly how to do them. Anyone else from Community Board 2 who'd like to ask any questions? Wow, very quiet group. There's Keen. Keen?
Yeah, tell me more about the backyard situation. How big is it? What is it? What are the rules? Or, how do you make sure it's not a problem? That's really the question.
So since it doesn't, it's on the 3rd floor, balcony, or patio. I think it's
On the rear or the front of the building?
on the rear of the building. And I would say it's 12 by 16, 12 feet by 16 feet. Now, what are the rules? I can start with, Leilani made reference to another program we have in Brooklyn, in Prospect Place, near downtown Brooklyn, and how that evolved, right? As we ramped up to full capacity, we didn't know in advance what our full policy was going to be. What we wanted to make sure was that clients didn't congregate in front of the building and smoke, and so they could use the backyard to smoke. I'm just going to, tell the story very plainly. At some point, one of the neighbors made noise complaints that at nighttime, the clients in your backyard on the patio smoking talk too loudly to each other. And we wanted to set a curfew time. But we also didn't want to set a curfew that would then result in people choosing to go in front to congregate and smoke. So what we ended up doing, and this is where DHS and the partnership came into play, they assigned, we were able to staff the patio in the evenings to make sure that we kept the number of clients on the patio at night after curfew at a minimum, and that those clients, while they were outside smoking, stayed quiet. And so
there's a model with sort of general rules, and then you monitor it as you.
We monitor and modify it to make sure that it fits the needs of that community and the larger community. So the shelter community, we may not have that many smokers. We may not have folks that are loud. We may have folks that are restless at night and want to just go outside and sit quietly. You have to accommodate the needs of the shelter community and the needs of the larger community. So we don't know exactly what the rules are going to be yet.
What about drugs and alcohol? Are drugs and alcohol allowed at the safe haven?
No.
No.
And I also wonder, one other leftover question was the good neighbor policy. You mentioned that clients get the good neighbor policy. What's their part of it?
So that they're provided with basic orientation materials when they come in to both the safe haven and the drop-in center. Solicitation of any kind in the neighborhood is not permitted by clients. Loitering in front of the building, as we've been talking about, stealing and requesting store credit in local businesses, spitting, littering, cursing loudly, loud music or yelling in the neighborhood or on the patio are all things that we will talk to our clients about.
Thank you, that's helpful. Other questions? My God, come on, you guys. This is a very quiet group. It's 7:07. Joanne.
I see Joanne.
Yeah.
Hi. I have a question. Tracy had laid out the process of how when a client comes in. Is the location, how do the clients know, or the prospective clients know that the facility is there? How do they find out about it? Is it advertised? Is it word of mouth or what?
So the clients that we receive for the safe haven beds are referred to us through the Manhattan outreach teams. And similarly for the drop-in center, people are directed to us for services from their outreach worker. There is also the possibility that, of course, that people are not connected with an outreach team, and they may hear about us through word of mouth, through other clients. And as I said, we'll also be working to establish relationships with other service providers in the neighborhood to also get referrals from those sources.
Okay, one other question. We've had a significant uptick in crime in the area, given the pandemic, given the fact that all of these years, people we never paid attention to are actually getting support that they're not getting and such. What do you do if you have situations where there is a client who is a repetitive issue in terms of disturbing the peace, in terms of disturbing pedestrians and such? I'm not that familiar with living by one of these. I'm going to be very, very honest about that. But what I am very familiar about is, having been born and raised in New York City, is having to deal with difficulty sometimes, even just getting to the subway on 14th Street and such. So I'm just curious as to what do you do if you do run into situations where there is someone who is a repetitive disturber?
Joanne, also, can you share with us where you live?
I live on 14th Street and Fifth Avenue.
Thank you.
Actually, the entrance to my building is on 15th Street, but we have two towers that span 14th and 15th Street.
Okay, so I think the question is, what if you have a repetitive issue? And that also jives with another question that we've seen, which is how do all of those rules get enforced?
Maybe one of the,
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I would like to introduce an idea to this part of the discussion. And that is that our goal is to help people reconnect with the rest of the human community and be in that community in a way that works for the community and works for them. And we really find that we have very, very few people. We're working with thousands of people at a time across all of our programs. And when we have a repetitive disturber, it gets up to me, and it almost isn't the case that someone gets up to me. I could count on one hand through the course of a year. And we work really hard to help address why the disturber is being a disturber. We work really
That's very encouraging. I think, though, the question is just like, if it happens, what is the process? You just described that if there's a repeat disturber, it comes up to you. Just get to understand if it happens.
At the end of the day, we can deny someone services. And of course, that's the last thing we want to do, because usually it's the services that help them, be a better neighbor. But we will do that if we have to.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you.
And also, I should say that if someone breaks the law, we will report that. We expect people to abide by the norms of our society and to respect the law.
There's a question on the chat. How is Paul's Place funded? And then we'll go to another question we have from an attendee.
So Paul's Place is funded through the Department of Homeless Services. DHS is our sole funder.
And you enter into a contract with them. Tell me if I've got this wrong, but for people who aren't as familiar with it, the Department of Homeless Services determines that it wants a safe haven, and it puts out a request for proposals, and you guys are one of the various service providers that responds to it, and you get the contract, and the city pays you to provide the services, right?
Yes, and then the city audits us to make sure we're providing the services that we're supposed to be providing.
And then the city takes about a year and a half before they actually pay you back.
Not that bad, but you get the idea.
I think Eric Botcher had a question, but it looks like he's put his hand down. Oh no, yeah, let's ask Eric if he wants to, yeah, and then we'll move on.
Hey everybody, Eric Botcher here.
Eric Botcher is with Council Speaker's Corey Johnson's office.
Yes. You can see if CUCS could break down the timeline a little bit about the opening date and then what needs to happen between now and then. And I also just want to really attest to how great of a partner CUCS has been. I guess it's been a couple of years now that we've been working with them on getting this site up and running. And we've had a number of meetings, very constructive, and they've been extremely communicative and really good about responding to individuals and neighbors about specific concerns and taking the time to do that. And we're also just very happy to have this opening because it really is going to fill a need. And, we work very closely with CUCS in their outreach capacity and all the other outreach providers like Breaking Ground and Urban Pathways. And every day they're canvassing our neighborhoods, offering services to folks who are living on the streets in our neighborhoods. But one of the big problems is, asking someone to come with me to the Bellevue men's intake on 30th and 1st is not going to be a successful approach in many instances. So what this will do, we hope, is get folks from our neighborhood who are living on the street inside. And once you get them inside, it's that opportunity, that golden opportunity to connect them to services and break that cycle of homelessness. So I just want to thank CUCS and maybe get some more information, some more details on the opening timeline.
Thank you, Eric. That's great. One of you want to take that question? You said that you're opening mid-December.
Yes.
What
That's
happens between now and then?
Oh, so I'm sorry. Let me jump in. This is Doug. So, construction is continuing. We've had delays. While the city paused, essential construction projects like ours did not. They continued, but it did not mean that we weren't met with difficulties. And we ran into a number. But construction continues. We think we can see the finish line. And we expect to have temporary certificate of occupancy, construction inspection and temporary certificate of occupancy by the end of November. And then with a temporary certificate of occupancy in hand, then we can staff and start providing services. So, the first thing, what needs to happen between now and then is we need to finish construction on the building. Anybody who lives in the neighborhood and has gone by can see that we've had scaffolding up on the front of the building. That scaffolding is now down. The scaffolding is down. There's still a sidewalk shed, street sidewalk protection up, and construction progresses.
A couple of questions from the chat. Someone, apropos of this, someone said that they noticed that there's a fence across the top of the front of the building. Will the participants also have access to the roof? Is the question.
They will. There's a great question. They will not have access to the roof. The roof is not part of the program space, but we did erect safety fencing along the roof.
There's another question, which is that there are 24 beds planned for this site. Does that mean that there will be no more than 24 overnight guests? Is there a maximum capacity that the Haven will allow? And what happens to the overflow?
So there will be no more than 24 guests in the safe haven portion of Paul's Place. DHS upon startup is we are reducing our caseload by 50% because of COVID in order to allow for distancing within the building and also reasonable staffing rotation. The drop-in center is open 24 hours a day. So in addition to the people that are staying in the safe haven, we will have people coming in and out of the drop-in center 24 hours a day.
And what's your maximum capacity on that? Because you mentioned that you're going to be reducing the caseload.
Mm-hmm. So our full caseload capacity is between 70 and 90 clients at the drop-in center and 24 clients at the safe haven. We've looked at the actual space in the building, the square footage of shared office space, as well as shared client spaces. And according to those calculations, we can have approximately 20 staff in the building at one time. And approximately, I believe the number was between 35 and 40 clients in the building at one time. And that's including all of the spaces in the building. Like that's what we can fit with and allow for people to be appropriately distanced.
And so that people can come in at any time. Can they sleep there if they're not sleeping in one of the 24 beds?
Yes. Our preference and what we'll be doing first when a person comes into the drop-in center is asking them if they have an open shelter case. If they do, we'll refer the clients back to the shelter for the overnight hours so that they can sleep in a bed. If they don't want to go to shelter, our second best option is to send them to a respite bed, a church bed. DHS requires that we refer 50% of our caseload at the drop-in center to church beds or respite beds every night. Respite beds right now during COVID are not open.
You're required to refer 50% of your clients there?
50% of the drop-in center clients to respite beds overnight.
What about the other 50? What do they do?
They could stay in the drop-in center.
Ah, I see. Okay, thank you. So 50% of the people who want to stay someplace overnight, you will be finding respite beds for, and anyone else who wants to stay overnight can sleep in the lounge chairs, presumably. Keen, you have a question?
So which churches, you say the churches, you refer them to respite beds, but the churches don't have respite beds? What churches are you going to refer them to then? Or how's that going to be?
So respite programs are volunteer-run programs that typically operate out of churches or schools sometimes. There's a program at the Friends School on the Lower East Side that I've connected with. They're not operating right now because of COVID. It's a difficult lift for the volunteer staff. There are cleaning issues. There are, it's
Right.
hard to get volunteers
So
right now.
when a client comes and you are supposed to refer them to a respite bed, but there aren't respite beds. I mean, I understand why there aren't, but I don't understand why you could refer somebody to something that doesn't exist.
Has the 50% requirement been lifted because of COVID?
Yeah.
Okay, so during COVID and during this period when respite beds are shut down, you are not required to refer people to a respite bed.
That's
so
right.
anyone who wants to spend the night up to a certain capacity that you have can spend the night in a lounge chair. It's not a bed, right? It's like a.
That's right.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Keen?
Not exactly, but I mean, if there are 30 people, I don't know what happens. If you want to be socially distant and you have 30 people who want to sleep there and you can't refer them someplace else, it sounds.
So in the case of other drop-in centers around the city, what the city has done to de-densify the other existing drop-in centers was move clients to hotels or other spaces to provide them with other rooms where there's no respite beds available, right? Respite beds have shut down, and they want to maintain a lower density within the drop-in center. They've opened up de-densification beds elsewhere at other locations for those clients. Now, we don't have that yet for 14th Street because 14th Street doesn't exist. We don't know that we're going to have demand that outstrips our diminished capacity, right? So, and I've said this before to this group and other groups like it. We're in this moment where you guys have a kind of concern about what if there's too much demand for the supply that you have. And we have a lingering concern, probably not valid, but a lingering concern that we're going to open this beautiful place and no one's going to come. Neither of those two things are going to happen. It's probably going to end up someplace in the middle. And however it slices, we do have the resources through our other programs, through the Department of Social Services to kind of meet that demand and to accommodate, however it goes.
Someone had a question, how are clients with drug addiction served? And I'm guessing that the answer to that is that you have social workers who would do case management as for any other medical or health issue.
That's right.
Adam, can you call on Joey Sasson or Sasson? I'm not sure if I pronounced her name right. Hey, Joey, you can talk.
We can speak.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Just a quick question, because so much time has gone by since the shutdown and everything. So I've been reading a lot in the paper about this hotel on the Upper West Side that's been causing a lot of chaos in the neighborhood there. How is this going to be different than that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And someone else asked also a question. What are the lessons learned and how will it be applied? Can you guys address that?
The most direct way to answer that is that we have a hotel a few blocks from that hotel that's getting all that attention, and we're not getting any attention.
Well,
I mean, and you know, there've been articles written about all of that, and there's been mention of us, but we're not a part of that.
which is really encouraging. Can you explain to us a little bit about how you operate that that produces that result?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One is that we won't do a shelter. We won't do very large shelters because we believe they're hard or impossible to do well. So the shelter we have at the Belnord Hotel has 101 beds or 101 men. The hotel that's getting all the attention has 300 people in it. We believe it's hard to create a sense of community, to maintain community norms, for people to know each other when it gets that big. So we refuse those. We've been asked by DHS to do them and we won't do them. We've repeatedly said no. So that's the first thing. The other thing is we have outdoor space in our hotel. And we chose the hotel in part because we were given two choices, and we chose that hotel in part because it has outdoor space, and we know how important that is to the community. The third thing is that we bring a pretty good level of clinical sophistication to the work that we do, and we really try to understand what's going on for people when they are creating difficulties for their neighbors or their fellow shelter residents. And we bring everything to bear that we have on that in terms of our thoughtfulness with our social work staff, our case management staff, our psychiatrists. And so, and then lastly, we respond. We set up a process with the community that we would take complaints, and we've been there, I think it's about 13 weeks now, and we have 20 complaints from the community. 6 of them were from the same person at the beginning of the whole thing. So we think it's a testament to the way in which we run our programs and try to be a part of a neighborhood in a way that won't be a burden on the neighborhood. We'll be applying all these same techniques to this place. This is not going to be over 100 people at a time, right? It's like we wouldn't do that because we just don't think we can do it well. Others believe they can, and we respect them for that, but we don't think we can.
Joey's had another question, which will be, will there be security 24/7? And I think you did address that. There will be.
Yes, absolutely.
The other question I wanted to ask about the Lucerne was, I think that one of the complaints from people who had complaints was that these people are sort of dumped there and with nothing to do during the day. So of course they're going to be out on the streets loitering and in groups and be making some people uncomfortable. How do you guys deal with that?
We try to keep people busy. There'll be computers that the clients can use in the drop-in center. There'll be activities, there'll be TVs. There'll be times that they're expected to meet with their staff. The one thing that's going to be hard for us is group activities. They'll be reduced and spaced out, but we typically do different types of treatment groups to help people understand what kind of housing is available, understand their mental health problems and how to manage them, understand their medical problems. The nurse practitioner will run groups for people with diabetes. So we do our best to keep people busy because they need those services, and they need time to get their lives together and to move on, and that takes time to do.
I wanted to also ask about not just the community advisory board, but I am struck by whenever we meet with a group that works on homeless issues, you all refer to them as your clients. And those of us who pass them on the street just see them as strangers.
Yes.
And I think that one of the reasons that people that increases discomfort is because people don't know who these people are and they don't have any mechanism for getting to know them. So I was wondering what sort of mechanisms maybe you guys have used in the past so that we can enfold this group into our community and not just walk them by or be made nervous by them or feel uncomfortable around them?
Well, we typically like to have residents of the neighborhood have opportunities to interact with the clients through volunteer stuff, decorating at Prospect Place in Brooklyn. We're on a tree-lined block with double-wide limestone buildings. We're in one of those, and our neighbors have been generous with their time and decorated the building for us, and come in and done stuff during the holidays, donated clothing. So we try to create opportunities for interaction. It's going to be a little more complicated during the pandemic, but we will do what we can within the limits of the pandemic imposes upon us to do stuff like that, because I think you're onto something there. These are all people with stories, with moms, with dads, with brothers and sisters, and they're often very fascinating people, and they're often very, very resilient people. What they've been through and been able to survive and kept their head above water, it's sometimes miraculous when you listen to their stories. And so getting to know them really, demystifies the whole thing and takes the strangeness out of it, and helps people see one another as having a lot more in common than they ever would have imagined. I started with.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I started at CUCS running a shelter for mentally ill homeless women, and I did intake the whole 8 years I was there. Probably interviewed 800 people in the process. And when you hear people's stories, they're not unlike people we know in our lives who ran into a hard time. Maybe they didn't have the resources they needed at the time they needed them to keep themselves together. But they're like us. They're like you and me. But they've, hit bumps in the road, one or two too many bumps, and haven't had the support they needed to overcome them. And when they become sort of disengaged and not very well related to other people, it automatically kind of creates this strangeness or fear. And I like to think of our people being out there and walking towards these people instead of walking away, connecting with them and then helping them connect again with the rest of the community.
Yeah, I think that would be productive. And, volunteers sometimes are, the same people who volunteer, that's what they do. So I'm hopeful that you'll find different mechanisms for engaging, whether it's through anchor institutions like our public schools or our private schools or our libraries, to find ways other than just, the population that tends to do this kind of work, but try to make inroads with populations that maybe would have a harder time connecting.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Let me see who else. I actually don't see a lot of questions from the attendees.
We have one question there that hasn't been addressed.
Go ahead.
From Joey Sisson regarding security. There
Yeah.
will be 24-hour security. Facility will be staffed 24 hours a day, not just by security, but also by case management staff. There will be, it's a 24-hour program.
And Paul Gronsky asks, what we're optimistically hoping for is some relief from the high number of unhoused currently congregating in the neighborhood of West 14th Street. So to what extent will your services be targeted at the local unhoused population?
Typically, a drop-in center and safe haven are most attractive to the people living in the area near the facilities. And so there will be some self-selection by clients. It would be unusual for people to come from far away. And the outreach teams that work in that catchment area will likely be the primary source of referrals to the drop-in center. The other thing about what Paul's describing there is that sometimes you get these little ecosystems of people congregating, and if you can start chipping away at one or two or three or four of them, it starts to change the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start moving them into housing, and then you see the whole thing kind of melts away because it's like a little social grouping of some sort. And if you can help a few of them do something different with their lives, it's kind of catchy or contagious, where other people start to realize, well, maybe these people are for real. Maybe I can do something better with my life. Maybe it would be better to be inside. And sometimes we'll even take people back who were part of the group to work with us to help get the others in the group to come inside and do something for themselves and do something to improve their situation.
I'd like to bring up an uncomfortable thing that I hope won't make you think ill of me. Washington Square Park, the northwest corner of Washington Square Park, has always been, well, has often been a hangout for a lot of drug use. What about that population? You know, we see a population that socializes there a lot, that loiters there a lot, that's uncomfortable to people because they look unhealthy and they might be begging for money and they might be doing drugs. How do you guys, you know, how do you guys deal with that?
So overall, we have to create an environment that's healthy for people. So we'll work really hard. We work really hard to create a situation that's therapeutic, that's respectful, that's dignifying. And we can't have what you're describing in the facility and at work. So, you know, we have a whole range of things that we'll do. You know, the first one is just educating people. Well, it's not like they're not sequential necessarily. A lot of times people who are using mood altering substances are doing it in order to medicate something that's going on with them. Like somebody, Tracy mentioned earlier, someone with depression often experiences a lot of anxiety. And getting someone medication that they need to address what they're going through often helps reduce or eliminate the use of mood altering substances. Other people, it's an educational process with them. Other people, it's referral to a more stringent drug or alcohol treatment program. There's very few people out there doing what you're describing who really like what they're doing and like it as a way of being for the long term. There's the expression people talk about in the 12-step movement. People get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know, and so sometimes you have to catch them when they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we try to do that. You know, we'll refer people to detox, we'll refer people to residential drug treatment program. We train all of the staff in how to help people with substance abuse issues. Our psychiatric staff are particularly good at that also. There's no magic bullet though, just like there's no magic bullet with non-homeless people who have drug and alcohol problems.
Right. I mean, we know that it's a pernicious problem and that it's very an intractable one. So I think that
is when people come inside and their life circumstances are more satisfying, they sometimes don't need to numb themselves through the mood altering substances as a way to deal with the sort of discomfort and the general unhappiness. It's sort of like that automatic, we have housing sites. Our largest housing site is 650 units. And we have 275 formerly homeless people there. And we prioritize all of our housing sites for people coming from the street. So we're working with what people think of as the most challenging people, the ones who are hardest to get to come inside. And we have very little problems in the housing sites because of drug and alcohol use. Some people use drugs and alcohol, but they don't make life difficult for other people.
Mm-hmm.
They break the law, then we address that as a law-breaking incident. But
yeah, I mean, that's how, I mean, I think that the nightmare scenario in people's heads, maybe, is, you know, a block away from the safe haven, there will be a group of people that hangs out all day and does drugs, and then they go to the safe haven to take a shower, and then they leave again. I think that's the concern of people. And so it's encouraging to hear you say that does not feel like something that's a concern for you guys. And you have described some of the methods that you have to stem those.
that we would experience what you're describing as a failure. We do not want to fail. both because it's a failure for the community and it would be a failure for us in terms of what we're trying to help people do. And we were asked by DHS to take over 2 shelters 5 years ago. One was 200 beds, so we said no. The other was the 101 bed shelter I was just referring to. At the time we took it over, it was being run by another provider, and it was a problem in the neighborhood. And we took it over, and it took us about 4 or 5 months, and it's not a problem. That's the shelter that's at the Bel Nord Hotel now, where we've only gotten 20 complaints in the last 13 weeks. So we'll do everything within our power to address what you're describing and to try to alleviate, to resolve that situation.
Are there any other questions?
And I just want to say, I know this was mentioned earlier, the Bel Nord Hotel, but CUCS, I'd just like to take the opportunity to acknowledge how well that they've been operating and managing that location. In all fairness, there's, they're not the only operator, so I think lots of things gets conflated, and also other elements, but they've been very responsive. All the providers in that area have always been very responsive, but have not received any complaints or concerns about the way they've been operating as an operator. And so just really speaks volumes to their community engagement, and their level of how quickly they respond. They're very, very responsive in real time, and that's always helpful. So just wanted to just mention that because I heard the Bel Nord Hotel being mentioned, and I think that's worthy to acknowledge and highlight on this call. Their level of professionalism and responsiveness.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Rachel, I think you have a question.
Yeah, I wanted to say a couple of things. One is thank you that you obviously are meeting people where they are and helping them go where they would like to go. I do live in the neighborhood. I'm very fortunate to be a middle-class person. I'm not homeless. I have no major issues. And I do not want to live in a society where we don't take care of people who do. And for me, I seriously disturbed being homeless and seeing that. And I'm utterly grateful for every service that helps to alleviate that. And I guess I do not understand why people would not want more services like yours in the neighborhood. So that's one. I guess my other real question is, I do have a slight relationship with some of the chronic homeless people around me. And I do things like buy sandwiches and, want chicken salad or tuna fish today or whatever. But can I refer them to you? I mean, can I say, do you want to ever think about going inside? You might want to drop by there. Is that a way you can accept people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We would like you to refer them to us. And yes.
There was another question because I think we're close to wrapping this. Oh wait, there's a panelist has another question. Oh, Rachel, you're up. Okay, you're done. Sorry, I'm trying to I'm not good at this. Before we close, there were a couple questions. One is we definitely want to make sure, as we said before, Leilani, the number or the contact for people who would like to volunteer themselves or someone else to the community advisory board. And also there was a question here for, hold on a second. Oh, who do you write to if you have questions after this meeting? So maybe one of you could just, yeah.
Feel free to put my email in the chat. I put my email in the chat.
Okay, so to that person who asked that question, which was Gail Fox, you should be seeing Leilani, I don't see your email in the chat, but oh, there it is. Leilani is at the top of the chat. You can see her email there. Are there any other questions?
Yep. Pat Comerford can talk.
Yes, where is she?
Hand up. She had her hand up.
Good for you. Thank you.
Pat, you may have to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Donna.
I'm trying.
Pat, yeah, ask to unmute. Can you?
So she needs to unmute. I've unmuted.
There you go, Pat.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry about that. Very quickly, CUCS, you're amazing. I won't go into all that, but thank you for all the work you've done. And
Wait,
together-
Pat, introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Pat Comerford. I'm from Speaker Johnson's office. I just really wanted to ask very quickly about the 24 beds and how I heard that the teams, Goddard and I guess Breaking Ground and, Urban Pathways, their teams will be bringing people into the beds or recommending people for the beds. Is that the way it's going to work? Like Jenny has a couple of teams out there and her teams will have a certain number of beds?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay. All right, great. And your catchment area goes to 23rd Street?
Yes, 23rd Street and below.
All the way. Okay, great. All right. And I'll ask more questions later. I just wanted to get a general idea. Thank you.
And Pat and Eric, I mean, for people who are at this meeting who have not been to meetings like this before, Council's Speaker Corey Johnson's office has been in conversations with DSS and CUCS for a long time. So they've been really helpful in helping this work out. I don't see any more questions. So I'm inclined to say 7:45. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, but also thank you CUCS for your ongoing. You've always been really responsive and always have answers to people's questions. So that is great. And we look forward to working with you guys once this is open so that this is not just a facility that happens to sit in our neighborhood, but it becomes something that is part of our neighborhood. And I can't think of anything else to say. Does anyone else have anything? All right.
I want to say thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're quite good at running these meetings.
Very good question, Susanna. Yeah, I'm very impressed.
We all asked questions. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Joe. It's nice to meet you too. I haven't met you before. Have a lovely rainy night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.